Have you ever stayed silent just to protect your dignity, even when your heart was screaming, your worth was clear, and your work spoke louder than your title? Elena Moore was just a secretary, or so they thought, until a single late night, a locked elevator, and three quiet words from the CEO changed everything. But not in the way you might expect, because what followed was not love. It was judgment, rumors, a resignation letter, and a choice that would break most people. If it were you, would you walk away from the only chance you had, or would you fight to be seen for who you really are, no matter the cost? This is not just a story about a kiss. It is about power, dignity, and what it means to rise quietly, but completely. If this story speaks to you, comment 1 below. If you think it could be better, let us know with a 2. Either way, stay with us, because what comes next just might be you. It was close to 10 o'clock on a Thursday night when Elena Moore realized the office was entirely silent. Not the kind of silence that comes with peace, the kind that sits heavy in the air, the kind that echoes in your chest. Outside, snow had started to fall again. The city of New York shimmered under the soft glow of streetlights and winter haze. 56 floors above the ground, inside the Sterling Tower, the lights were mostly out, except for one. Her light. Elena sat at her desk near the executive corridor, her back straight, eyes tired. She had been revising a quarterly financial report that no one had asked her to fix, but she knew it needed work. She knew it because the numbers mattered, and because she could not afford to get this wrong. Not when people still looked at her and saw nothing more than a secretary. She reached for her thermos. The coffee had gone cold hours ago. She drank it anyway. On her screen, spreadsheets danced in columns of green and red. The kind of work that did not inspire many, but to Elena, it meant structure. It meant logic. It meant that somewhere, somehow, she was still in control. She adjusted her scarf. Heating always worked inconsistently this high up, especially during storms. She glanced at the digital clock at the corner of her monitor. 9:54 p.m. Josh would already be asleep by now. Her son always asked the same thing before bedtime. "Will you be home tonight?" "Mom." "And tonight?" As with most weeknights, she had kissed his forehead, whispered yes, and left the apartment with a heart too full to carry. A sound startled her. The elevator dinged at the far end of the hallway. No one should be here. Everyone from the senior staff had left after the late budget review. She leaned slightly in her chair, half hoping it was security. It was not. The man who stepped out looked every bit the part of a winter story. Tall, silent, a tailored charcoal coat over a navy suit, gloves in one hand, a worn leather briefcase in the other. Luke Sterling, the CEO. His presence shifted the stillness in the room. He walked slowly, not surprised to see the light coming from her desk, his expression unreadable. She straightened quickly, brushing her hair behind her ear, closing the spreadsheet tab she had no business editing. Her hands moved with practiced calm, but her stomach turned. Luke approached, stopping a few steps from her desk. "Working late, Miss Moore." His voice was deep, even. It did not hold judgment, but it noticed things. Always had. Elena nodded, keeping her tone even, just finalizing numbers from the Landon report. "I thought it could use a little clarity before Monday." Luke glanced at the paper stack on her desk. Then, without invitation, he sat on the edge of the opposite table, unfastening his gloves. He looked tired, not in the physical sense, in the way people look when they carry something no one sees. "You always stay late," he said quietly. "I try not to, but numbers do not clean up themselves. A small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. It faded quickly. Elena, may I call you that? She hesitated, then nodded. He folded his gloves neatly on the desk beside him. Elena, you have rewritten this report twice already. I read it this morning. It was solid. She looked down, adjusting a stack of papers, just to keep her hands busy. I thought I could make it better. Luke said nothing for a moment. Then, with a sigh, he asked, do you always have to be the one who fixes things? She froze, not because the question was unfair, but because it was far too fair. I suppose I do, she said softly. He watched her for a long while, not speaking. The snow continued to fall behind the windows, like static on a forgotten screen. I lost my mother in February, he said suddenly. The change in tone caught her off guard. I remember, Elena said. I sent a card. He nodded. I never replied. That was my mistake. There was a pause. She allowed it. She always said, I would not know peace until I met someone who challenged me. Someone who would not care about the name on the building. Elena looked up, finally meeting his eyes. And you think that is me? I think you are someone who cares more about the work than the credit. That is rare. His voice had softened. Something in her chest pulled tight. Elena stood up, gathering her things. I should go. My babysitter has already stayed past bedtime. He stood too. Their eyes met again. Neither moved. I am sorry if I made you uncomfortable, he said. You did not, Elena answered, but staying makes me uncomfortable. She stepped around him, walking toward the elevators. Her heels clicked on the marble floor, breaking the hush that had swallowed the room. He did not stop her, not yet, but he watched, and she knew. She could feel his gaze long after she pressed the down button, long after the elevator doors opened. Long after she stepped inside, she looked up one last time. He had not moved, and something inside her whispered that this story was not finished, not even close. The next evening, Elena was back at her desk. This time, the building was still half lit. Most people had gone for the weekend, but a few quiet voices still echoed down the executive hallway. She kept her head down, focused on the report she had promised to polish. Even though she was not part of the leadership team, she had quietly offered to prepare supporting data for Monday's meeting. No one asked her to do it. No one noticed she did. But the work mattered. At 7:40 p.m., her phone buzzed. It was a message from Marcus Flynn, the head of HR, and one of the few people in the office who treated her like a peer. Sterling saw your revisions. He asked who prepared them. I told him the truth, just giving you a heads up. She stared at the screen for a moment, her pulse suddenly louder than the humming of the lights. She locked the phone and turned back to the spreadsheet, but her fingers trembled slightly over the keyboard. A few minutes later, she heard the soft knock of polished shoes. She did not look up. She already knew who it was. Luke Sterling stopped near her desk, not speaking at first. The silence between them was not uncomfortable, but it was not quite settled either. Is this a habit, he asked, finally? She blinked. What is you? Saving departments that are not yours. Staying late. Fixing what others overlook. She shrugged, trying to keep her voice casual. I do not like loose ends. He nodded once, then leaned forward, resting his hands on the back of the guest chair. Can I ask you something? Elena. You just did. He almost smiled. Almost. Why do you work this hard? She paused. For a moment, she thought about giving a clean, rehearsed answer. Something about professionalism, work ethic, loyalty. Instead, she told the truth. Because no one expects me to. He said nothing, but the way he looked at her changed. Just slightly, she continued. When I became a mother at 23, people assumed I had given up on ambition. When I took a job as a secretary, they assumed I had no voice. When I do more than I am paid for, they assume I am trying to prove something. And are you? Yes, she said simply, but not to them. The silence that followed was not heavy. It was quiet in a different way, a respectful kind of quiet. Luke pulled out the chair and sat down, this time not as a CEO, but as someone willing to listen. I know what it is like, he said, to walk into a room and feel like you have to earn the space you are already standing in. She looked at him, surprised. Do you? He gave a slight nod. My father built this company. His name is everywhere. But when I took over after he passed, half the board thought I was too young, too soft, too different. Elena watched him for a moment, sensing something deeper in his words. You do not seem soft. I am not, but I am not him. And for a while, that felt like a failure. They sat there, surrounded by numbers and muted lights, and for the first time since she had joined the company, Elena felt seen, not noticed, not evaluated. Seen. She leaned back slightly, folding her arms. So, what did you do? I changed the rules, he said. Quietly. I promoted based on merit. I made room for different voices, and I started paying attention to the people no one else did. She raised an eyebrow. Is that why you are sitting here, partly? The rest, I am still figuring out. Another pause, comfortable this time. Elena looked down at her desk. Her scarf had slipped from her chair. Luke reached to pick it up, brushing the fabric lightly before handing it to her. Their fingers touched for the briefest second. It was nothing, and yet it was not. She took the scarf, thanked him quietly, and turned away. He stood. I will be in the boardroom at 9 on Monday, he said. I would like you to be there. To explain your analysis. Her eyes widened. I am not part of the team. You did the work. You understand it better than anyone, and I think the board needs to hear your voice. She hesitated. People will talk. Let them, he said. She did not respond, just nodded once. When he left, the office felt colder somehow, or maybe she had just been warmer for a moment. Later that night, while riding the subway home, Elena watched the city blur past the window. Her reflection stared back, still the same face, but something had shifted. Not because of Luke, not even because of the compliment, because for the first time in a long time, she had said out loud what she had only dared to believe. She had value. And maybe, just maybe, someone had seen it too. On Monday morning, Elena woke early. Josh was still asleep, curled under his dinosaur blanket, one hand clutching the stuffed bear his grandmother had sewn. She stood in the kitchen, pouring coffee into a travel mug, moving quietly so she would not wake him. The sunlight tried to push through the clouds outside, but winter in New York did not give in so easily. She dressed in navy slacks, a soft gray blouse, and the only pair of heels she owned that did not pinch her toes. Her blazer was clean, but a little worn at the cuffs. She smoothed it out anyway. By 7:45 a.m., she was walking into Sterling Tower. A new ID badge hung from her neck, temporarily granting her access to the executive boardroom. Marcus had arranged it. Her palms were damp, and she told herself it was just from the cold. As she entered the conference room, the space was still empty. Long polished table, leather chairs, a wall of glass behind her, showing the frozen city stretching toward the horizon. She set up her documents, organized the slides, checked the numbers again and again. At 8:59, the first board member walked in, then another, and another. No one said much to her. They looked at her the way people look at someone they cannot quite place. When Luke entered, he nodded toward her, then took his seat without a word. He was wearing a slate gray suit, sharp and commanding, but when their eyes met for a brief moment, there was a softness she had not expected. The meeting began. Elena stood. Her voice was steady, her delivery practiced but sincere. She explained the restructuring options with clarity, highlighted missed revenue channels, proposed a strategy that could save 3% in operational costs over 6 months. And when she finished, the room was quiet. One board member leaned forward. "You are the executive assistant, correct?" She smiled politely. "Yes. I am also the person who discovered the discrepancy in the Landon data model." A few nodded. Some exchanged glances. No one disagreed. Luke cleared his throat. "We have been overlooking resources that have always been here," he said, gesturing toward her. "That ends now." The meeting ended at 10:42. People filed out. Some offered kind nods. A few did not look at her at all. Luke lingered, watching as she gathered her things. "You did well," he said. "I did what was needed," she replied. He tilted his head. "You do not accept praise easily. I accept earned respect, and I think I am still working toward that." He smiled slightly. "You already earned mine. That should have meant something. Maybe it did." But as she stepped back into the hallway, Elena felt a different kind of weight settle in her chest. By noon, the whispers had begun. It started in the elevator. 2 women from finance, glancing toward her, speaking in tones too soft to catch, but loud enough to understand. In the break room, someone cleared their throat when she walked in. A young analyst quickly closed a group chat window on his laptop. By 2:00 p.m., Marcus stopped by her desk. "You okay?" he asked, quietly. "I am fine," she said, and she almost believed it. "You are not doing anything wrong. Elena, I know, but that does not always matter to people." She nodded. By late afternoon, she received an internal memo inviting her to join a leadership subcommittee, a role that technically did not exist before this morning. She stared at it for a long time, then closed the window. That evening, she walked home instead of taking the subway. Her feet ached. The wind bit at her face, but she needed the air. The snow had started again. Soft, quiet, relentless. When she reached her apartment, Josh ran to her, arms wide. "I drew a robot today," he said, beaming. She scooped him up, breathing in the warmth of his little body. "You are my favorite artist," she whispered. After dinner, after bedtime stories and a long talk about kindergarten friendships, she sat by the window. Her phone buzzed once, a message from an unknown number. "You do not need to defend yourself. You are better than their noise." L. She stared at it, then turned the phone over, screen down. Because even though part of her wanted to feel gratitude, even connection, another part of her was angry. Not at Luke, at the system, at the way people turned competence into suspicion, at how quickly they chose to believe the worst, especially when it came from the mouth of a woman who smiled politely, but stepped into rooms that were not built for her. That night, Elena lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She had fought hard to build something steady, for herself, for Josh. But now, something was shifting, something she could not name yet. Not love, not fear. Something in between. Snow had started to fall heavier by late Friday afternoon. From the window near her desk, Elena watched flakes drift past the tall glass panels, like soft static in slow motion. She had planned to leave early, but the budget numbers for the new marketing rollout still had errors. No one had flagged them, but she had noticed, and she could not walk away from a mistake, even when it was not hers. At 6:15 p.m., the office was nearly empty. The lights overhead cast a faint, amber hue across the floor. Her coat was draped over the back of her chair. Her scarf still hung on the corner from earlier that morning. She rubbed her temples. Josh was staying overnight with her sister in Brooklyn. Pizza, cartoons, and a blanket fort. He had waved through the phone, grinning, telling her, no grown-ups allowed tonight. So, there was no rush. Still, something about the silence felt heavier than usual. At 6:27, the elevator chimed. She glanced up and saw Luke stepping into the hallway, brushing light snow from the shoulders of his coat. His tie was loose, his expression unreadable. "Elena," he said, walking toward her desk. She stood instinctively. Not because he intimidated her, but because some part of her always did when he came near. "You are still here," he said. "So are you," she replied. "I forgot my laptop." He did not leave. She gestured to the report in front of her. New campaign numbers were off. I was correcting them. "Of course you were," he said. His tone was neutral, but his eyes said something warmer. He looked past her to the window. "You can barely see the buildings now. Visibility is getting worse." She nodded. "I was planning to take the subway." He looked at her for a long second. "Do not," he said simply. "Come on, I will drive you." She hesitated. He noticed. "Elena, it is not a favor. It is snow. And safety. A beat." Then she nodded. They rode the elevator in silence, the same elevator where he had once stopped to speak words she had tried not to replay too many times. But tonight was different. At the parking garage, his car was already warming up. The inside smelled faintly of cedar and leather, clean, ordered, like him. He opened the passenger door for her. She murmured a thank you and slid in. As he drove, the snow thickened. The wipers struggled against the buildup. Outside, the city had turned soft and gray. For a while, they did not speak. But it was not awkward. It was just quiet. Halfway across the bridge, he glanced toward her. "Why do you not ask for more?" The question was unexpected. She turned to him. "What do you mean? You do more than most people here. More than I did at your age. But you do not ask for credit. You do not ask for raises. You do not ask for recognition." She looked ahead, watching snow swirl in the headlights. "Because I am afraid of what it will cost." Luke said nothing. Elena continued, "I have worked so hard to be respected, to not be a story people whisper about. I cannot risk that. Not even for more." He kept one hand on the wheel, the other resting near the gear shift. "You already are a story. Elena." She turned sharply. "What is that supposed to mean, I mean," he said, voice low. "People talk no matter what. If you are quiet, they say you are weak. If you speak, they say you are arrogant. If you stay late, they say you are ambitious. Or worse." His voice grew quieter. "If you get close to someone, they say it is for a reason." Her breath caught. She looked away. "I know what they say." His voice was soft now. "So do I." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he pulled over at a quiet curb, just before the turn into her neighborhood. The snow was falling heavier now. Their windows fogged slightly. She could hear her own heartbeat. "I should go," she said, reaching for the handle. "Elena," he said. She stopped. He turned toward her, his face unreadable, Do you ever wish things were different? Yes, she said. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I wish I did not have to walk this tightrope. I wish I could feel something without worrying what it would look like. There was a pause. Then he leaned slightly forward, not enough to assume, just enough to ask, without words. She hesitated, then leaned in too. The kiss was soft, brief, just long enough to feel real, just long enough to make everything inside her ache. She pulled back, slowly. Luke did not move. Her voice came out rough. This cannot happen. I know, he said. She opened the door. Cold air rushed in. She stepped out, shut the door, did not look back. Inside the car. Luke closed his eyes. Outside. Snow covered her footsteps before she reached the front door. On Monday morning, Elena arrived at the office 15 minutes earlier than usual, not because she wanted to impress anyone, but because she had something to return. In her bag was a sealed white envelope, her resignation letter. The weekend had passed in silence, no calls, no texts, not even from Marcus. The world had gone cold and quiet, as if waiting for her to make the next move. She had replayed the kiss too many times, the pause, the pull, the way it had lit something inside her that she had spent years keeping locked away. It had felt real, and that was exactly the problem. In the world she lived in, feelings came at a price. By 8:20, she was at her desk. Her heart thudded low and steady. The envelope sat on the keyboard for a long time before she finally picked it up. She walked toward the executive corridor. People looked up as she passed. Some smiled too tightly. Others said nothing. Rumors moved faster than truth. By the time she reached Luke's office, the door was closed. She placed the envelope at the center of his assistant's desk and turned without a word. She did not cry. Not then. By mid-morning, the shift had begun. Rachel Sterling, Luke's cousin, one of the company's senior directors, had apparently seen the two of them leave together on Friday. She had always been polite in public, but behind that polished smile was a razor edge, and now the whispers had sharpened. Elena Moore stayed behind with the boss again. She has been promoted without the title. She knows how to work the system. By lunch, 2 emails she had sent for project approvals went unanswered. By 3:00, a new junior hire was sitting at her desk, just shadowing for the week. No one had told her. At 3:15, Marcus stopped by, his face tight with concern. Do you want to talk? He asked quietly. She shook her head. I'm fine. He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded once. At 4:00 p.m., Elena began packing her things. She moved slowly, deliberately. No tears, no drama, just the end of something. The building was nearly empty when she stepped into the elevator. She hit the button for the lobby, then leaned against the cold steel wall. As the doors began to close, a hand reached in. The doors sprang open again. Luke stepped inside. He looked straight at her. His face was unreadable. She straightened, her pulse rising. He did not press a button. He did not speak. He simply reached forward and pressed the red stop button. The elevator halted. Elena blinked. What are you doing? His voice was quiet. You are leaving. I am. Because of the kiss. No, she said, her voice low. Because of what followed it. He nodded slightly. I know what they are saying. And you did not stop it. I did not want to make it worse, he said. Sometimes silence protects people. No, she said. Sometimes silence is cowardice. That landed hard. He looked down for a moment, then up again. Elena, I am sorry. I do not want apologies. I want respect. I want the freedom to do my job without being measured by what people think I might have done behind a closed door. You have always had that from me. Then why did you not say anything? I was afraid. That stopped her. Luke continued. I was afraid of pushing you away, of making things harder. I thought if I just let it pass, it would fade. She looked at him. And did it? No, he said. It did not. The elevator was quiet. She felt the metal walls press in on her chest. I cannot stay, she said. I know. She stepped forward. He moved aside. But then, he did not. He stepped in front of the doors, blocking the path. Elena. She looked at him. He was breathing slightly faster, his eyes softer than she had ever seen. I love you, he said, just like that. No build-up, no flourish, just truth. She stared at him. Her throat tightened. No, she whispered. You love the idea of me. The woman who works late, who never asks for more, who never crosses the line. I love the woman who crossed it, he said, and then walked away anyway. Silence fell. Long, slow, thick. Elena closed her eyes. She wanted to believe him, but belief required trust, and trust required time. She stepped around him, reached for the panel, pressed the button. The elevator started moving again. He did not try to stop her. As the doors opened in the lobby, she stepped out, not fast, not slow, just forward. She did not look back, not even once. 3 days passed. The city moved on. The snow turned to gray slush on sidewalks. Holiday lights still blinked in windows, but the cheer behind them felt thin. Elena stayed home. She answered no calls, replied to no messages. She did not check her inbox. She folded laundry, played board games with Josh, and baked a pie that neither of them finished. On the 4th day, someone knocked on her apartment door. Josh ran to open it. Uncle Marcus, he shouted. Elena stepped into the hallway, wiping flour from her hands. Marcus Flynn stood in his usual black coat, holding a small paper bag and a tired smile. I brought soup, he said. She let him in without speaking. He placed the bag on the counter, then looked around the apartment. It was clean, warm, quiet. Lived in. Nothing like the cold offices of Sterling Tower. He sat down at the kitchen table. I know you are not taking visitors, he said. She poured tea, set it in front of him, sat across from him. I am not. He nodded. Still, I thought you should know what happened. Elena leaned back. I already know. They whispered. Rachel watched. I kissed someone I should not have. The end? Marcus shook his head. Not quite. He pulled out a folded printout from his coat, placed it on the table. It was an HR complaint form, filed against Rachel Sterling. Elena did not touch it. She accused you of misconduct, Marcus said. Said you were manipulating your position for personal gain? Elena laughed. It was dry, cold, and people believed that. At first, yes. She had photos. Elena's smile vanished. Someone followed me. Marcus nodded. She hired a private firm, claimed it was for internal monitoring. It was all off the record. Unethical, maybe illegal. Why would she do that? Because you were getting noticed. And she saw that as a threat. Elena crossed her arms. And Luke. Did he say anything? Marcus exhaled. More than that, he fired her. Elena blinked. What? The board pushed back. She is family. She holds shares. But he did not flinch. He presented the timeline, the evidence. He protected your name, Elena. She was quiet for a long time. He should have done it sooner, she said. Yes, Marcus agreed. But he did it anyway. She looked down at her tea. The surface was still, but inside, it was warm. Marcus slid another envelope across the table. What is this? A formal offer. Director of Strategic Operations. Full salary, independent reporting line, your own team, no assistant title, no confusion. Elena stared at it. I am not sure I want to go back. You do not have to. He leaned forward. But you built something there. Not because of Luke, because of you. The people who matter know that now. She looked away. Going back feels like defeat. No, Marcus said gently. Going back on your terms is power. There was silence again. Josh ran into the room, carrying a Lego spaceship. Mom, look. She smiled, reaching out to fix one loose wing. Later, after Marcus left, she stood by the window. Outside, the street was wet. The sky was low and gray, but there was a break in the clouds, a narrow line of soft light pushing through. Her phone buzzed. She did not check it at first. When she finally picked it up, it was a short message. From Luke. The board heard your voice. It changed things. I hope you know that. She did not reply, but she held the phone a moment longer than she needed to. That night, she opened her laptop, not to write a resignation, not to update a resume, just to look at the offer. She read it twice, then closed the screen. Not yet. The invitation came by courier. It was wrapped in navy paper, sealed in gold, her name written by hand. Elena Moore. No title, no department, no expectation. Just her name. She placed it on the table and stared at it for a long time. The Sterling Enterprises Annual Winter Gala. Saturday night, black tie, Midtown Ballroom. All senior staff expected. She was not senior staff anymore. She was not even staff. Josh found the envelope later that evening and brought it to her. Are we going to a party? He asked. She smiled. Not this time, buddy. Why not? She hesitated. Because some rooms are not meant for me. Josh frowned. Then maybe they need someone like you there. She ruffled his hair, blinking back something sharp behind her eyes. Later that night, a package arrived. Inside was a dress. Simple, midnight blue, elegant but strong. There was no note. But she knew. Luke. She held the fabric to her chest. It had been a long time since someone believed she belonged anywhere beautiful. Saturday came cold and clear. At 7:40 p.m., she stood in front of her mirror. Her hair was pinned back, lips painted in soft rose. The dress fit perfectly. Not tight, not loud, just right. She still questioned herself as she walked into the ballroom. The chandeliers sparkled above long tables. Waiters floated between clusters of people, in suits and satin. The room buzzed with wine and power. Heads turned as she entered. Some eyes widened, others narrowed. She walked in silence, chin lifted, heels steady. Marcus spotted her first. He gave her a nod across the room, a kind smile. She took a glass of sparkling water from a passing tray and found a quiet corner. She would stay 30 minutes, then leave. She had no interest in pageantry. But something inside her needed to witness this, to know how it would feel to be seen without apology. At 8:15, the lights dimmed. A spotlight lit the stage. Luke stepped forward. He wore black. His voice, when he spoke, was calm but full. Thank you for joining us tonight, he said. This year has been difficult. Growth is never easy, but it is necessary. He paused. In the past 12 months, we have faced restructuring, external scrutiny, internal shifts, and through all of that, we found new voices, new strength. He looked out at the crowd. At the center of that was someone most of you did not see, but I did. He looked toward the back corner. Elena froze. Luke continued. She did not carry a title, but she carried a department. She did not ask for recognition, but she earned our respect. People began to murmur, "Turn." He raised his hand gently. She left this company 3 weeks ago. Not because she failed, but because we did. More silence. Elena could barely breathe. Luke's voice softened. I am speaking tonight not just as your CEO, but as a man who has made mistakes. He took a breath. I let rumors speak louder than truth. I stayed silent when I should have stood beside her. I watched her walk away, and I let her. He paused again, but no more. He stepped forward. If she is willing, I ask her to return. Not as someone who sits outside the room, but as someone who leads within it. People began to turn toward her. Elena Moore, he said. Her name echoed across the ballroom. She felt hundreds of eyes. She did not move, not right away. Then, slowly, she stepped forward. Her steps were steady, not proud, not shy, just sure. The crowd parted. She reached the edge of the stage. Luke stepped down, met her halfway. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. No one spoke. Then he held out his hand. Will you stay this time? He asked. Her eyes shone. She took the microphone. Her voice was soft, clear. I will, she said, but not because I was asked. She looked out at the room, but because I choose to. Applause, not thunderous, but real. Luke smiled, and when their hands found each other again, this time, she did not let go. The morning after the gala, New York was quiet. Snow still covered the sidewalks, but it had lost its sparkle. It clung to curbs and rooftops in a soft, tired way, the kind of snow that had already been walked through, lived in, melted a little. Elena stood in her kitchen, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea, not coffee, not today. Josh was at his cousin's for the weekend. The apartment was still. Her phone buzzed. She did not answer. Then it buzzed again. Luke, I know it is early. I would still like to talk. Not at work. No suits. No speeches? She stared at the message. Her thumb hovered over the screen. Then, Elena. 1 hour. Cafe on 22nd and Lex. Come alone. The cafe was small, warm, the kind of place where people read real newspapers and spoke in low voices. Elena was already there when Luke arrived. He was not in a suit, jeans, wool coat, hands in pockets. Snow still dusted his shoulders. He saw her and paused for a moment before walking over. She looked up, nodded once. He sat. Neither spoke for the first minute. A waitress brought him black coffee. He thanked her quietly. Elena sipped her tea. I did not expect you to come, he said finally. I did not expect to invite you, she replied. Another pause. Luke leaned forward, elbows on the table. Not formal, just honest. I do not want to say the wrong thing. Then say the true thing, she said. He nodded slowly. I was afraid of needing you, she blinked. Why? Because you made me question who I was. Who I was pretending to be. You walked into that company like you belonged, but you never forced anyone to see it. I was too busy surviving, she said. He smiled, but there was sadness behind it. I built sterling enterprises to be different from what my father left behind, but I let it become just like everything else. People feared the wrong things, protected the wrong people. You were one of them, she said. I know. Silence again, not heavy, just full. Luke's voice lowered. I loved you in quiet. When I should have stood beside you, I failed you. You failed yourself, she said. I was just in the way. That hurt him. She saw it, but she did not take it back. I did not come here for closure, she said, and I did not come for apologies. Then why? She looked out the window. A man crossed the street, holding a red umbrella. A woman laughed into her scarf beside him. I came to see if what I felt still had a place to land. Luke leaned back, and she met his eyes. I think it does, but only if we both build it. He exhaled, not in relief, in understanding. I do not want to own your story, he said. I want to be in it, if you let me. She smiled softly. Then take off the CEO mask. I am not in love with that. I never wanted you to be, he said. They sat in silence again, but this time it felt like breath, like space being made. Luke reached into his coat pocket. He pulled out something wrapped in tissue. He slid it across the table. Elena opened it. It was a pen, not expensive, not flashy, just familiar. She gasped. This was my father's. I found it in the drawer you used. After you left, I thought you might want it back. She held it in her hand, fingers trembling. Thank you. I know how much he meant to you. She nodded, then tucked the pen into her bag. Luke reached for his coffee. I am not going to ask you for anything else, he said. Not now. Good, she said. But if you ever choose more, I will be here. She smiled, gently. You already are. When they stepped outside, the sun had begun to melt the snow. It dripped from awnings, glinted off passing cars, turned gray into silver. They stood at the corner. No one said goodbye, because there was nothing ending, only something beginning. And this time, they would not rush it. 2 weeks after the gala, Elena walked back into Sterling Tower. This time, no one whispered, no one stared. She moved through the lobby in silence, head high, her new badge clipped to the inside of her coat. It said, Director of Strategic Operations, not assistant, not temporary, director, but titles had never been the goal. Her real work began the moment she stepped into the 11th floor. This was not the glassy upper tier where executives sat. It was the in-between level. Project managers, analysts, creators, the people who built everything from the inside out. Her office was small, but it had a window, a view of rooftops, not skyscrapers. That suited her just fine. There was a knock on her open door. A young woman stood there, nervous, holding a laptop against her chest. Hi, Ms. Moore. Elena, she corrected gently. The woman smiled. Right, I am Dana. Marcus said you were building a team. Elena stood, offered her hand. I am not building a team, she said. I am building a movement. Want to be part of it. Dana's eyes lit up. Yes, please. By Friday, her office was alive. 2 desks had been added, then 3, then 5, young voices, smart eyes, sharp questions. They were not loud. They were clear. She gave them space to think, then invited them to speak. She told them the truth. That innovation did not live in title. That silence helped no one. That smart ideas meant nothing without brave people to carry them forward. She held weekly roundtables with no agenda, just stories, wins, struggles, honest reflections. At first, people were hesitant. Then, they opened up. And once they did, the shift began. Luke visited once during the second week. He knocked before entering. Her team sat in a circle, whiteboard full of scribbles, laptops open, half-finished ideas floating in the air. He leaned on the doorway, watching. Someone asked, Do you want to join? He smiled. No, just visiting. Then his eyes met hers. A moment passed between them. Not romantic, not professional, just real. He turned to leave, but before he stepped out, he said, "We are watching and learning." Elena replied, "We are not here to impress. We are here to change things." He nodded. Exactly. A week later, one of the projects her team launched saved the company $300,000 in process redundancies. Nobody applauded, but someone sent chocolate-covered almonds. That was enough. On a cold Thursday afternoon, Marcus stopped by. He leaned on the edge of her desk, sipping from a mismatched coffee mug. "You know what I heard today?" he asked. Elena looked up from her notes. "That your department has the highest internal retention rate." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You knew I designed it that way." He laughed softly. "Of course you did." Then he leaned in. "You changed the weather in this building. Elena, people walk differently now." She smiled, but her eyes stayed serious. "They are walking because they finally believe the floor is steady." "You made it steady," he said. She shook her head. "They did. I just removed the noise." Later that night, after the lights dimmed and the hallway quieted, she sat alone for a moment. She stared out at the rooftops below. This had never been about revenge. It had never been about power. It had always been about dignity. The kind that did not ask permission. The kind that changed a room without raising its voice. Her phone buzzed. "Luke dinner tomorrow, Josh too." She smiled. "Elena, he says only if you bring the robot, Lego set, you promised. Luke deal." She looked at the city, then turned off the lamp and went home. Spring came slowly to New York. The ice melted in quiet drips. Sidewalk trees bloomed pink, then white, and for the first time in months, the sun lasted longer than the shadows. Elena Moore stood at the front of a small community center auditorium in Brooklyn. A group of young women sat in folding chairs, listening. Some were college students, some were mothers. One held a sleeping toddler against her chest. Elena was not there as a guest speaker. She was just sharing. "I worked for years," she said softly. "And every time I tried to speak up, someone reminded me where I came from, or who I was supposed to be." A few heads nodded. She continued. "But here is what I learned. You do not have to shout to be heard. You just have to mean every word you say." Someone raised a hand. "How do you keep going when no one believes in you?" Elena smiled. "I believed in myself, and then, slowly, others did too. But it started with me." The room was still. Then someone clapped, then another. She did not ask for applause, but it felt honest. That night, she sat on the couch in her apartment. Josh was beside her, building his Lego tower. Luke was on the floor, trying to follow the instructions. He was terrible at it. "This piece does not fit," Luke said. Josh shook his head like a tired teacher. "You are holding it backward." Elena laughed, the kind of laugh that came from the stomach, not the throat. She had not laughed like that in years. Luke looked up at her, smiling. "You still think this was a good idea?" he asked. She nodded. "Not just a good idea. The right one." He leaned back against the couch. "I used to think strength meant control," he said, and now he looked at her. "Now I think it means letting people see the mess, and showing up anyway." She reached for his hand, not tightly, just enough. Josh climbed into her lap a few minutes later, tired but smiling. She wrapped her arms around him. The window behind them glowed with soft city light. No chandeliers, no titles, no whispers, just home. Weeks passed. Her team at work grew stronger. They launched a mentorship program. a flexible hour policy for single parents, a feedback channel that was anonymous and real. No one asked her to do it. She did it anyway. One Friday, Marcus stopped by with coffee. He leaned in and said, "The board voted today." She looked up. "And you were named to the executive development panel. They want you to lead internal culture reform." She blinked. "I did not apply." "I know." She paused. "Do I have to wear a different badge?" "No," Marcus said. "You just have to keep being you." She smiled, softly. "That I can do." That night, she walked home. Instead of taking the train, she let the wind hit her face, let her heels echo on the sidewalk. She passed the building where she used to stop for cheap coffee, the park bench where she once cried after her second rejection letter, the corner where she and Luke first looked at each other, like people, not roles. She stopped walking and looked up. The sky above was not completely dark. There was a line of light, soft, still far, but there. It reminded her of something her father once said, long ago. Sometimes, the light does not come from above. It comes from within. You just have to trust that it will carry. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in a long time, she believed it. Sometimes, walking away is not weakness. It is strength in its quietest form. Eleanor Moore taught us that dignity does not shout. It chooses silence when noise would win the room, but silence must never come at the cost of truth. In life, there will be moments when you are judged unfairly, when people speak before they listen, when your worth is measured by rumors, not by your heart. In those moments, you have a choice, to break down or to break through. Elena did not fight with anger. She led with grace. She built something better, not by climbing the old ladder, but by creating her own steps. This story is not just about love. It is about becoming the person who no longer waits to be chosen, but chooses herself. No matter your age, no matter your title, you can begin again with courage, with stillness, and with the quiet power of knowing who you are. Thank you for being here. If this story touched your heart, even just a little, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who may need it, and do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Your support means more than words can say. It helps us keep telling stories that heal, that connect, that remind us we are never alone. See you in the next story. Until then, take gentle care of your heart.